The two previous videos were Follow Me videos for the M1E module and then the M2 module. The M1E module was an example. That's the E for example. So all you did is do whatever it said to do, which is typically to read the code and then run it. Then, now that you know what the code is about, you can study it as much or as little as you'd like, but come back to it as an example later as needed. M2, when we did that, it had all those to-dos in them, which we changed to done. Again, to-do says you what to do, and then you just do it. And that's the extent of the instructions that you'll get the entire term long. So we did to-dos, we did dones, and then at the end, we did the VCS commit and push. VCS commit, and then chose commit and push. We'll see that happen again on M3 here shortly. Now, I like to sort of start with a clean slate. So I'm going to close all. See how close all, right click there, and then open up M3. I'm also going to make my screen so that we can see things better. You don't have to and probably shouldn't do that. Starting out on this, it says to read those two lines of code, and that code first computes 2 raised to the 5th power. 2 to the 5th power. And so it yields 32 as that number. It then makes the name, some people like the word variable, the name answer refer to that object, that 32. It then multiplies, it then looks up the value of that name answer and then multiplies that by 100 to get 3200. And then finally it prints the newly computed number, 3200 without a comma. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens here. So I'm going to do the usual right click. That's what the to-do says, is to understand those and then run. So I'm doing the usual right click and then run M3, and there it is. By the way, I want to show you that the green arrow may not do quite what you think. So I'm going to backtrack a bit. I'm just going to set things up. Don't do any of this. Just sort of watch for a sec. So I just got back to where we were. And then when I hit the green arrow, it says run M2 because that was the most recently run thing. I just went back and reran it. So you have to be careful. You have to right click and run in the current module when you switch modules. After that, while you're on that module, you can use the green arrow. So bottom line is I typically just right click and select run so I don't have to remember, but as you like. I just changed that to do to done. Now we're going to compute 77 plus the cosine of 2.75. And there's a hint that you're going to have to import the math module by typing import math way at the top up there, way up top there. And then you're going to store that, and you're going to use math dot cosine dot cos of 275 to compute that number. You're then going to store that using a name of your own choosing and then print the square root of that computed value. There's more than one way to compute a square root. I'm going to let you sort of see what you can come up with. Hint math dot might, and then an S might give you some clues, but just see what you can do. There's more than one way to do it, and whatever. So go ahead and pause the video now. Pause the video and do this problem. It doesn't do any good for you to just watch my solution. You need to try it yourself. So pause the video and do the problem. I'm presuming that you've done so. Here's my answer. I'm going to set the name number equal to, and then I've got 77 plus, and I type math dot, but it lives red there and shows nothing. That's because I have not yet done the import. So I go up top there, and I type import math. Then I'll go ahead and come back down to where I was and retype the dot, and look how it shows me all the math stuff, If I type another letter, C, I see the math.c stuff, and I can just click on it to get math.cosine, in this case of 2.75. So the dot trick, we call it, typing a dot like that shows all the things the thing in front of the dot can do. Let's see, I'm going to then print that number excuse me, I'm going to print the square root, the math dot, and then see there's S for square root, the math dot square root of that previously calculated number. I'll do it in a different way in a sec, but I put it into the name number because it said to store it using a name of your choice, and then I'm printing it. In practice, you might want to make it one line, but just to practice up storing things in names, I've insisted that you write some name equal 77 plus math dot cosine of 275. I see that it gives 8 point something. This is a sanity check. The cosine is between 0 and 1, or between minus 1 and 1, 70, so we get about 77. Square root of 77 is, well, it's 8 point something. Sure, I could believe that. So that's a sanity check you should always do when you compute things. Here's another way I could do it. So this is an alternative. You don't have to do both, but you might want to put both in your notes up in your solution just so you can see, but up to you. So here I'm going to print, and this time I'm not going to bother, I'm going to calculate the square root by taking number raised to the 0.5 power. That is another way to say square root. I could have typed just 0.5, but the style that we use, the so-called PEP8 style that is standard to Python style, is to use 0 point and then whatever decimal number you want. The style also calls for putting one space on both sides of any binary operator like the double asterisk. Here's to do 3. You're supposed to compute the square root of the stuff that it says there. You can use as many or as few intermediate names as you want, and then do it. Pause the video. Pause the video now and do to do 3 as best you can. Pause the video. I hope that you've already done to do 3. I'm going to show you a couple of solutions, and I'm going to make a mistake on the second time. So this one I'm going to compute 41 times 88, and then separately compute in a different name the other product, 4 times the cosine of 2. So 4 times, and I've already imported math, so math dot gets it there, and then the cosine of 2. And then I'm going to print the, what does it say to do? The sum of those two. Notice that I'll just type the square root of the sum. So I type math dot square root. I typed a few words of the name product and then pressed enter. I typed a few letters of the name other product and then enter. Try it yourself next time you get a chance to type stuff. So it'll auto-complete for you. So that's really handy. Now that gave 60. That seems like a possible value. 3,200 plus, I don't know, something small, square root of that. Yeah, I could be about 60. I could believe that. So here's an alternative. And again, I'm going to make a mistake. So don't type yet if you want to type this alternative. I'm going to make a mistake. So I'm going to compute 41 plus times 88. And right there in the print, not bother storing it in a variable. I'll use parentheses so I don't have to remember, does plus bind more tightly, what's the order, what the so-called precedence order is. So I'll just use parentheses so you don't have to think much. I ran it, and I see I got a different answer over there. A different answer. You might want to pause the video, see if you can see why. If you don't see why after a few seconds, though, I'll show you. Perhaps you've seen that I forgot to do the square root. So I'm going to go off and fix that. I'm going to do print as before, but I'm going to put the math dot square root in front of it. Math dot, I've just pressed enter to get the square root, and looks like, yes, I need another parenthesis there. See how I put a little red when I didn't have the parentheses matched? And also notice that when you type a paren, it highlights very little bit, but it highlights the matching parenthesis. So there's that, and now I get the same answer twice, so that's good. So I'm done with that. Again, just pause the video if you're behind and replay whatever parts you need. Don't let me rush past you. Make sure you totally understand what we just did. The whole point is to understand it, not just type. This one says to compute the square root of 2 in 2 different ways, using math sqrt and 2 to the 0.5 power. Go ahead and do that now. go ahead and do that. Pause the video and do to do 4, and then come back to the video. I'm going to show the answer. I'm going to put my two things in names. Don't have to do that. I could have done it just with a single print if I'd wanted to. But here's the math square root of 2. And then I'm going to compute 2 raised to this. A double asterisk is exponentiation. 2 raised to the 0.5 power, square root of 2. I'm going to, oh, by the way, I made an error there. See that red? See the red there? It just shows me that I've made an error. So I'm going to go back and fix that error on the previous line, extra parenthesis. You'll get used to error messages real soon. If you encounter error messages in the first session, just do what you can and don't worry too much about it. We can get it straight in the in-class sessions. On session 2, we'll start worrying about error messages, but not yet. So I printed them both on the same line. You could have printed them on 2 separate lines, whatever you want. Also, I want to show you over there how word wrap works. So if you click on that little funny squiggle button, it wraps that line onto 2 lines. So if you have things that extend off to the right, you can either make the little window bigger or you can use that little word wrap there. So we've done to do 2, done to do 4. We're going to do to do 5, and then you'll do the rest of this exercise yourself. But let's do to do 5 together. Every object has a type and a value. So for example, that square root of 2 object, its type is float, which is short for a floating point number. At some point, perhaps we can talk about why it's called floating point. It has to do with the internal way that numbers are stored internally. And its value is about 1.4 something. The type of an object is critical. It tells what the object knows and what it can do. For example, you will see later today a turtle object, a simple turtle object. And you will see that the type says that simple turtle objects can do various things like spin or something, I've forgotten. And that the value of it of a simple turtle is its color, its position, and lots of other things. I've now typed in here what you want to type, print, and then the type function applied to the number 3.14. Go ahead and do that. Pause the video as needed so that you can see it, and you'll see that it shows the floating point class. Pause the video now, get that typed in, make sure that you get just like I did, and then mark to do 5 as done. Pause the video to make sure you've done to-dos 1 through 5. For to-do 6, so I'm assuming you've done 1 through 5. For to-do 6, let me just show you what you will do, though you'll do this in your in-class session. So in the in-class, you're going to start with this module, M3, but with to-do 6. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at each one of those, like hello in quotes, and you're going to try to guess what its type is, and then you're going to type print paren, type paren, and then the thing. So quote ABC, 4 times 5, all those things that are listed down there. You're going to type them all in after first guessing what each one's type is, and then the print statement will tell you. Go ahead and commit and push your work in the usual way if you haven't already done so, and then you're done with to-dos 1 through 5 of the M3 module. And again, you'll do to-do 6 in class, since you may have questions about some of it. One more time, make sure that you actually made it through all of the things there and that you truly understand every bit of that. Don't just type along, understand everything this Follow Me video is showing you. If you have questions about anything in any of these videos, including these Follow Me videos, just drop an email to your instructor or wait till class and ask your question then, or whatever works good for your questions. We'll have a formal question and answering system coming up, but we'll save that for later to show it to you.